Hello, my friends. My name is Jack, and once again, we are coming back to God knows what's going on. It just seems like the world kind of went loony the past week or so. Um, so, in a previous video, depending on my release order, which generally is how I record the same way, you probably already saw the video on the South Korean fire. That was prong number one in the digital ID front that I'm trying to do here. Prong number two is this article, which is Discord breach. Threat actor claims 2.1 million government IDs stolen and massive 1.5 terabytes of data haul. Think about that. So, the immediate question is, why does Discord have government IDs? And I gotta say, I already know what the answer is. And the answer is really the government pushing what's called as KNC laws, or Know Your Customer. Or, pardon me, KYC. KYC, Know Your Customer. Pardon me. So, for those of you who don't know, Discord did have a massive data breach. And it seems like they really downplayed the data breach. Initially, I wasn't going to cover it until I saw this article, and I saw that government IDs were involved, which, goes wholly into my whole digital ID is the bane of my existence now, and I got to talk about it because, I know, okay, let's backtrack here. Between you and me, I know we're a men's support channel, men supporting other men, all that stuff. This is an everybody issue. And the reason why I specifically say, this fits is because, men tend to be using these apps like Discord. And there are a fair number of women, I'm sure there are women who watch this. And if you are, hello, I don't mind you staying, thank you for being here. But like, it's very important to understand, because what's on an ID? Well, obviously your full legal name, your address, your picture, right? And some other things. And with AI being able to take a photo and then creating basically a full rendered video from that picture, who's to say that they're not going to use, some threat actors are not going to use that to gain access to God knows what, because at the same time you have like a lot of people use like biometrics for their phone. When does that become an issue where your thumbprint is now easily accessible? In order to get certain licenses for my life and my job, I had to have fingerprints, and what happens when those databases get cracked? Now my fingerprints are out there, I know, like, for example, again, I'm not military, never was, but I know enough to be dangerous. The CAT card that the government issues you, that actually has your DNA stored on it. So that way, if something were to happen to you, they have a record of your DNA, so that way they can, let your next of kin know in case. I was told, statistically speaking, I'll go on a quick tangent here. If you notice, a lot of infantrymen will have like some form of ID on their boot, right? And the thinking there was, statistically speaking, in an artillery strike, the only thing that will be recovered is your feet in your boot. So that's why they would do that. So that way, there would be some form of recognition. Same principle. Like if your body is so mangled after some kind of incident, well, they have your DNA stored on record, and then they can say, hey, this person perished, and inform next of kin. So think about all that. All that information is stored somewhere in some government database, just waiting for some threat actor to just come and take that information and sell it to the highest bidder. I don't know what someone would do with a copy of your DNA, but you know what? The possibilities are endless. So anyways, so following the initial coverage of the September 20th breach, new information has come out, basically. 2,185,151 government ID photos have been released in this breach. 1.5 terabytes of age verification data is now in the hands of this group. And they're actively leaking this information. So people are getting doxxed at this point. Leaked database tables reveal extensive user data exposure, including complete identity information. Basically, if you got an axe to grind, and you had all this information, like, how people on these servers can be. Some people can say some of the most hateful, racist things ever. And I guess because, servers can be private, there's probably a feeling of privacy, but as time and time again has shown us, there's no expectation of privacy. All this stuff. And even if there was an expectation of privacy, it's just going to get leaked anyways, and then you lose your job, you lose your livelihood, your lives are destroyed forever, At this point, it would probably be better to just go outside and just walk up to people and say some of the most hateful things ever and just be done with it. Cut out the middleman and just say, hey, here's all that stuff that I say, and be done with it. I know the UK has been kind of going after people who say horrible things online, and this is just going to lead to, at least in the UK aspect, a lot of people are probably going to get busted for this stuff now. Security researchers have now identified the hackers. It's a coalition cybercrime group containing members and tactics from 3 notorious hacking organizations. So you got specialists in social engineering and IT help desk impersonation, extortion through publicity and data leaks, and experts in bulk data theft and underground data monetization. So all 3 of these groups have a specialty and are involved. So their portfolio, if you want to call it that, of previous crimes include Salesforce platform intrusion and affecting 91 major organizations, which Salesforce is a big dealer in trade secrets and all that stuff. Claims of stealing 1.5 billion Salesforce records from 760 companies, breaches of major brands including Louis Vuitton, Qantas, Air France, KLM, and Cisco. Which I didn't realize Air France and KLM were combined. Interesting. The group operates through data leak sites on the dark web where they publish stolen data, pressure victims, and coordinate extortion campaigns. And this is, again, the inherent problem with people wanting IDs online. You know, like, I don't know if you remember, the immediate thought that came to my mind just now was the Ashley Madison breach, when they actually had people use their they had people who were on the website who actually used their who were government contractors, and they used their government emails to be on that website. I mean, really think about that. I hate to say it, but some of the, the whole democratization of the internet was probably one of the worst things to happen for humanity, because a lot of people just do not realize what's possible online. And the fact that 2.1 million people put their government IDs onto a website. And here's my immediate question to all of you. Like, I signed up for Google Fiber recently, and they wanted my ID. I'm told that they're going to delete it. Are they, though? I can't take them at their word at this point. I would imagine that Discord had a whole clause saying that they were going to delete it, but did they? And it's not just driver's licenses, it's passports too. Unknown number of email addresses and support communications compromised. Well, yeah. I'm just kind of going through this. Let's see what the user data tables are. ID, internal user identification numbers, username, Discord usernames, emails, verified account status, location data has been leaked. The type of premium and how long they have premium, pending deletion status, country codes, phone numbers, multi-factor authentication status, and last activity all have been leaked. Wow. I just hit my mic. I apologize for that. Here we go. Phone number records have been leaked. Subscription and billing information, so they might have your credit card information. That's fun. Userinfo.json, comprehensive user profile, payments.json, payment history and methods. God. So basically, if you're on Discord, you bought Nitro, you bought some kind of subscription service through them, it's possible your information has been hacked. It's possible they got your credit card information. God dang it. Like, my question is, why wasn't this information encrypted? Is it... So hang on here. This data structure reveals that the breach encompasses not just isolated support tickets, but systemic access to Discord's entire customer service backend database, including deeply sensitive personal and financial information. Why? It doesn't say if it was encrypted, but I would imagine that if they got all this stuff, it's not encrypted. If they got the images of people's driver's license, it's not encrypted. Why is this stuff not encrypted? It just seems like every single time there's a data breach, which let's talk about that for a second. How many data breaches have happened this year? It just seems like every freaking week there's a data breach of a major institution. Why is that stuff not encrypted? You have HIPAA laws that govern medical records. That's encrypted. But when it comes to giving a place like Discord my personal information just so I can use their cruddy service, I have to hope to God that it's encrypted, and it's never encrypted. You know, like, I don't believe in government intervention, but it seems like there has to be some kind of punishment at this point. You know, there is no excuse. If you need age verification, you have to encrypt that information at somehow at this point. You know, um, because quite frankly, I'm getting sick of this. I'm getting so sick and tired of, worrying that my information is just gonna poof right into the freaking ether. You know, they don't need that stuff, and yet I have to take them at their words that they're going to get rid of it, which obviously they're not getting rid of it. You know, a lot of these companies need to get their heads out of their rears and either delete that information permanently or they need to encrypt it somehow. You know, and I know what this is. What it boils down to is this is a push for digital ID. That's really what this is. You know, because the whole point of digital ID is like, well, it's obvious these private companies can't handle it, so the government's going to handle it now. But we just saw with the South Korean fire that the freaking government can't handle it either. You know, and again, why does Discord need to have age verification? Why do they need that information? And here's a good paragraph on it. The breach dramatically illustrates the risk inherent in mandatory age verification systems that require government ID submissions. Security experts have long warned that such databases create irresistible targets for cybercriminals. Discord implemented stricter age verification measures to comply with regulations, including the UK's Online Safety Act. What a shock. What a surprise. This is my surprise. This is Jack's total surprise. You know, I don't remember where I heard this quote. I don't remember where I heard this. But it just, for some reason, this quote is popping in my head, and it just seems apt for what it is. And I think the quote was all famines since whenever were caused by politics. Like, when you really think about it, you know, we have abundant food, you know, to feed everybody more than sufficiently. And yet there's still famine in this world. And yet there's still starvation. You know? And there's no need for it. All famine, all starvation is caused by politics. And for some reason, that quote comes from my head. And like I see it. Like, the UK wants this digital ID, and yet they're the ones that caused the target for Discord to be so irresistible that now Discord got hacked. You know, because again, Discord shouldn't have to, you know, take anybody's ID and verify their age. You know? It's the same thing with, like, pardon the vernacular, but pornography, pornographic websites in, like, the state of Texas requiring a digital ID or requiring an image of their ID or some kind of proof that they're over the age of 18. You know, I don't understand it. I really don't get it. However, the decision to store 2.1 million government IDs in a third-party vendor system has now resulted in one of the largest identity document breaches in history. The fact that it's one of the largest in history is also stunning. Like I said, 2.1 million. You know, really think about that number. You know, it's basically the one seventh the size of the city of Tokyo. And Tokyo is one of the largest cities in the world. I'm trying to think of what else I could equate to 2.1 million people, but the number's so mind-bogglingly large that I can't. Here's another good statement here, and again, this is a good point right here. Unlike financial data, which can be canceled and replaced, yeah, sure. It's super inconvenient because everything's connected now. Government issue identification cannot be easily changed when compromised, leading victims vulnerable to identity theft, potentially for years. Again, think about all this. Really appreciate the issue. So it says here that Zendesk was identified as the compromised vendor. It's a customer service platform. I'm not familiar with Zendesk. Support ticket management. So they're involved in support ticket management systems. The attackers gain access to support agent ticket queues, customer service chat histories, upload attachments including digital ID documents, internal Discord training materials, customer billing information. So basically, if Zendesk was what caused the breach, then it's possible that other companies that use Zendesk got breached. So then the question then becomes, who else is involved with Zendesk? Are they breached? Are they in a sleeper situation where, they've already been breached, but they're slow, they're just waiting for the time to, reveal that they've been breached, because a lot of times when these hackers gain access to a system, they sit and wait. They sit and wait for, up to a year in some cases. And then that's, they're slowly downloading information because they download information slowly, not to attract attention. It's an operation over a time frame. Let me put it that way. So again, if Zendesk is responsible for this leak, or they're the pathway through, you'd have to figure out who else uses Zendesk, and then figure out if you're involved with them as well. I'm sure Discord's probably the most likely everyday thing you use, but there's other companies that probably use it. They're probably big in the tech world and as a vendor. This is not good, guys. This really isn't good. Let's see here. So they tried ransom, which, yeah, sure. They post proof of access screenshots. They mock communications, threaten escalation. Sure. Yeah, what does it matter to us? Here we go. Here's where this kind of matters, at least in my book. So the immediate risk is identity theft, obviously. Stolen IDs can be used to open fraudulent bank accounts, apply for loans, commit financial crimes. Okay. This group is probably not going to do any of that. They're going to sell the information off to people who will do that. This is an interesting one. I didn't know about synthetic identity fraud. Where attackers can combine real ID information with fabricated ID or details to create synthetic identities. That's interesting. Social engineering, obviously, you know a lot about a person, then you can use that to gain access to other things. Like, for example, um, you know, the whole 3 questions that you fill out when you open up a new account somewhere, you know, what's your first pet's name, where'd your mom raise you, that kind of stuff. Having all that information, they can use that to kind of brute force their way into other accounts that you may own. Okay. I've been told that the way to kind of get around that is like use answers that are obviously not correct. Like, for example, um, you know, where did you go to high school? You put down green and you just associate that color. You know, that's the way to do it. And it's kind of like, then what's the point of having these questions if that's how you got to treat it? You know, we built the system. Why can't we come up with a better system? And then of course your long-term issues, you got, you know, now that information's out there, obviously you can't change your name unless you go to court, you know, and why should you have to change your name because of this? You know, same thing with like, you know, your ID number. So your driver's license has unique ID numbers. Obviously, they can't change those. Another good one is tax fraud. Social security numbers, because we use our social security number for everything for whatever reason. Medical identity theft. You know, if your identity is used for the commission of a crime, now your name is associated with a crime, and then when you go try and get a job, you can't pass a background check. You know, there's all those issues. And then of course it gives you ways to protect your identity, which at this point, what does it freaking matter? Honestly, what does it matter? What's the point? You know, if you're not doing all this stuff already anyways, then what does it freaking matter? I'm sorry. I'm very frustrated over this. I'm very, very frustrated over this because what this just shows is nobody. How do I want to say this? You're giving your information to people that obviously don't care. You know, they're doing it because they're required to by the government. They stored it plain text, more than likely. They stored it as plain images. And now all that stuff's out there. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's obvious that, you know, I know that the whole digital ID was meant to deal with all these problems. But again, you know, what does it really solve? Because you send your digital ID to, like, for example, Discord. You know, I have heard the whole bit about how there may be like a vendor like, say, Google, right? You give Google your information and then Google has like this API or whatever the heck you want to say that other companies hook into, and your identity is verified that way. You know, which that's only shifting the responsibility from one company to another. You know, and then again, the same situation. Like if the government's the one doing that API and they lose their data center, well, now I can't log into like Discord. If that system were to be implemented, I can't log into my bank accounts. I can't log into my fridge. I can't log into my oven. I can't log into my stove. You know, my grill, my smart TV. I can't log into any of that because some government database in Washington decided to burn up. You know, now I'm stuck doing nothing, and then my smart car won't start because my thumbprint won't work because of some government database getting burnt down. You know, where does it end? You know, we're making things so freaking smart that it just creates a stupid system. Damn it, I hate the future. I really hate the freaking future. This article also goes into like other things. And quite frankly, at this point, I don't care. I really don't care anymore. I just, this whole situation is just messed up, and it's not getting better, and I hope everyone realizes what's happening here. Like, I really hope everyone realizes what's happening. The first world is making problems, and they don't realize it yet. Like, the reason why I won't even get a brand new TV, I'm clinging on to my old TV as long as I possibly can, is because, you're going to have to watch an ad before you can even start your TV up. I just want to watch a freaking film. Why do I have to watch an ad for a freaking film? And like, the whole point of, like, say, Netflix, when it first came out, was so you didn't have to have ads, and now they have ads. It was like cable back then was the same way. It just seems like all this stuff just slowly gets worse. And then there's this new, you sign up for our subscription, you won't have to deal with ads. I'm using ads as kind of like an example here. Bear with me. So you sign up for their subscription, and then one update later, oh, by the way, we have ads now. But you can pay more so you don't have to deal with ads. And then, this tier now has ads, but you can pay more. And then soon, like, all their tiers have ads. And it's like, what are we doing here? I'm so sick and tired of having to play this whack-a-mole game where I'm always behind. It just seems like everything is getting worse. I know, like, I'm sure somewhere, some bean counter somewhere thinks this is like the greatest thing in the world, but I'm tired of it. I am so tired of it. Just give me a printer that works. I don't have to sign up for some ink subscription. Give me a TV that works so I can watch my films without any problems. Give me a car that starts up without having to listen to a freaking ad or watch an ad when I'm at a stop sign or whatever. Give me a taxi that works. Give me, whatever. I'm just tired of having my time stolen from me. I'm tired of having my identity stolen from me. I'm tired of having all this stuff stolen from me without any just compensation, without any respect, All right, well, I'm at 30 minutes, so I'm going to end it here. If you enjoyed this, which, sure, but if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share the videos. I do appreciate it. Don't take the topic out on me. Like, I'm bringing this as awareness to you because this is scary stuff. Give me the like, but because you like my charming personality, not because you like the content. Anyways, I hope you have a good day. All right. Bye.